Hello students, welcome back. So now I'm going to show you how you can read a CSV file using CSV module. CSV stands for comma separate value. There are two ways you can read a file using CSV module. You can either use the inbuilt method reader or you can use the inbuilt method reader. The best practice is to use dictionary reader. So the first thing you do, you import your CSV module. So suppose you do not have a CSV file. If you already have a CSV file, then you do not have to run this cell. But let's say you do not have a CSV file, so let's create one real quick. So this is my data right here, and I'm writing to the CSV file. I'm assuming you know how to do this. If you do not, then watch my previous video that explains how to write to a CSV file. So in this case, I write to the CSV file and I print a little helpful message that file has been successfully created. So let's go take a look at that file. And this is that file right here, people.csv. Let's open this file up and let me minimize the screen. And you can see that this is the data. This is the data that's present inside the CSV file that I just created. If you already have the CSV file, you do not need this thing. You don't have to actually create this data. Okay, so after the data has been successfully created, now after you, let's say you have your CSV file, let's read now. So in this case, I'm going to be using the reader. Now let's try to read the file using reader. So that in this case, when I use reader, the data will come to you in the form of a list. So I'm reading each and every entry in the list and I'm printing the rows. So when I run this, it's going to print each and every entry. It's going to print out, let me just say, it's going to print out the first one, which is the first row. It's going to print out the second, third, all the way to the end. You can see that each and every row is printed. Now you can see, if you notice, your row has been printed in the form of a list. So in this case, each row is a list. And this reader is responsible for making sure that your data comes in the form of a list. What if you want to see the name and city? Well, you can see the name and city very easily. Your name is this entry and your city would be this entry. So each row, you can actually print out your row, you can print out your name and city. So in this case, my name would be row 0, index 0. That would be this right here. And my city would be index 2. So I'm printing in the row with index 0 and row with index 2. That gives me the element, the name element and the city element. So when I run this, it prints out name, city, Bobby, New York, and it prints out all those things. Now let's try to read and display the content of the CSV file using dictionary reader. This is the best practice. So in this case, each row is read as a dictionary with column names will be as your keys. So first thing you're doing, you open up a CSV file. I'm invoking my dictionary reader inbuilt method. This create a reader instance. And for each row in my reader, I'm printing my row. So when I run this, you can see that it prints out every single entry in the form of a dictionary right here. Now let's say you want to print out the name and city of every single row. Well, you can do that. In this case, you can specify row square bracket and you put name over here and then comma row square bracket city over here. So when you run this, it's going to print out row and city. Sorry, name and city. In the previous one, you had to manually specify row 0 and row 2. You had to specify the index value. In this instance, when I'm using dictionary reader, I am not specifying the the index. In this case, I'm specifying row name. In other words, because this is a dictionary, I'm using the key. And this tends to be a little bit more easy to understand. This way you can see that the reader is trying to print the name and the city of a record. Show me name and city and print some meaningful message. So you can do that too. Now I can use my f string. So basically, this code is exactly same as this code, but now I'm actually printing something meaningful out. I'm gonna write Bobby lives in New York, Maxi lives in New York, something like that. So in this case, I can use f string. So f, and then inside your curly braces, say row name, lives in, and then row name right here. When you run this, it's gonna print out a meaningful message for each one of them. Now, suppose you want to read the CSV file and you only want to print few content. Maybe you want to filter the records. So let's say you want to find out who lives in Zurich from the CSV file. In this case, open up your CSV file, create your reader instance, and iterate through every single row. Now, if your row city equal to Zurich, then print out your row. So when I run this, it's going to print out the name of all the people who live in Zurich. So it's going to print out the whole records right here. If you look at this condition, isn't this easy to understand? Because you can see that your filtering condition is that the person's city is Zurich. By reading this thing, you can understand that. And that's because you're using dictionary reader. Let's look at this one. In this case, you want to find out who lives in New York and age is more than 25. So in this case, I'm adding one extra condition. Everything is same. All the code is same, except if you compare these two lines of code, everything is same, except now I'm just adding this extra line of code over here. So in this case, I'm just checking that your row age is more than 25. So when I run this, it's going to print out name of all the people who live in New York and whose age is more than 25. And you can actually understand that just by looking at this condition right here. Maybe you want to display people living in New York and ages more than 25, and now you want to print some meaningful message, because over here all it's doing printing the dictionary. So maybe you want to print something like Maxi lives in New York, Ashwani lives in New York, or something like that. You can do that too. So in this case, everything is same as the previous code. The only difference now is I'm using F string over here. When I'm printing my the statement, I'm using F strings. In this case, it prints out row name, lives in, row city. And this is a little bit easier to understand. Just by looking at the code, you can tell that it's going to print out the name of the person over here, and it's going to print out the city over here. And we can determine that from here because we're using dictionary reader. So suppose you're given a task to read the CSV file and perform some kind of simple operation. Let's say you have to calculate the average of ages. So the first thing you do, you create an empty list of ages that's going to store all the ages of everybody in that CSV file. Open up your CSV file, create your reader, and iterate through every single row. And each time when you iterate through a row, you find out the age and you convert that into integer, and then you append that to the age column, age list right here. And then you keep doing this thing for every one of them. At the end, you print out your ages, and then you also print out your average. So my all ages, that will be this variable. Oops, sorry. My all ages, that would be this. It will be 24, 30, 29, 81, 39, 28. In other words, this right here, 24, 30, 29, 81, 39, and 28. These are my ages right here. And now you want to calculate the average. That's easy. Just take the sum of the ages divided by the total count, and that's going to give you the average. The average is 38.5.